Hi guys, and welcome to a new Reading Diaries vlog where I bring you along for our vacation to 5 different countries over the span of 2 weeks when I tried reading as many books as I could. Enjoy! Morning guys, welcome to a new vlog. It's actually not a very joyful start to this vlog because I am feeling extremely stressed out. I didn't sleep very well last night. Woke up with a headache. My ear was hurting as well, so because we're taking the plane tomorrow. It's not a very good start. I'm panicking a little bit. I'm hoping it's just gonna resolve by itself. Otherwise I'm gonna have to go to a doctor's in Europe, which stresses me out even more. The good news is my bag is ready now, kind of. I think I only have like 2 bits to add to it later. I'm only taking a backpack with me this time. Actually, each of us is taking a backpack only, because we're quite limited in terms of luggage this time on this trip, because we're gonna be taking flights inside of Europe. Those flights are very small. A small airplane means smaller compartment for luggage. We're quite limited also in terms of weight. It was a struggle. I had been thinking about what I was going to bring in my bag for like 2 weeks. So now it's finally done. I'm relieved that I could fit everything, but nonetheless I'm still a bit stressed out by just the trip in itself, which will start tomorrow, guys. I just downloaded so many books on my Kindle app, guys, on my iPad and also on my iPhone. In fact, I am so excited to go through these books. I mostly got comic essays, and lots of them are actually new books in series that I was already reading and very excited about. So I am so excited to start reading them tomorrow. And then for physical books, I'm only going to take 2 because I don't want to overload myself with books, obviously, since I only have 1 backpack to go. So I'm gonna take the book that I'm currently reading, which is 人間失格, No Longer Human by Dazai Osamu. I'm 1/3 into this book and I'm loving it so far, so I'm gonna be finishing it during our trip. And then I'm also going to take a huge novel,密やかな結晶, The Memory Police by Ogawa Yoko. That one, I'll start reading it during the trip, but because it's so big, there is no way I can finish it, I think, while we are on our trip. But it doesn't matter because I only want to make a dent into it, so that's fine. Like, literally, long flights and waiting times are the best, the absolute best for reading a gift, literally. Hi guys, it's the evening now, so I'm about to just go rest for the rest of the day. I pretty much did everything I really wanted to do today, or at least that I needed to do today. So the whole travel prep is pretty much done now, and the only thing that's left on my list for today is just to download some movies and YouTube videos to watch whenever I don't have Wi-Fi during the trip. So I'm just about to do that now, and then I will just call it a day because I'm super tired. Leaving Kinako with the pet sitter earlier was very crying. I almost cried. I really forced myself to not cry this time because I cry every time. So I'm sure she will be fine, and I will be super happy to see her again when we come back to Japan. I must be strong. I must be a strong cat mom and not cry. I'll try my best, okay? Alright guys, I'll see you tomorrow for the start of our trip.
Open my eyes, I slept through the day.
And just like that, we were on our way to our first destination in this very long trip. Well, actually it was only 2 weeks, but we had 5 destinations to hit this time. And our first destination was Singapore. If you guys don't know, my husband and I actually lived in Singapore for many years, and we met there as well. So it is a city full of memories for us, and we were delighted to come back and to see its wonderful skyline once again. We went to one of our favorite hawker center to eat, and then it was already time to go back to the airport. I was lucky to be able to read some more of my book, 人間失格. But we spent most of this 13-hour flight just sleeping, in fact. The next day in the morning, we got to our next destination, which was London. I was even more delighted to go back to London because I had been there as a child but hadn't been back since becoming an adult, so my vision of London was very limited. To be honest with you guys, it was almost like I was stepping into Hogwarts Legacy, the game, or just Harry Potter straight up. I got to see the Rosetta Stone at the British Museum, which was a big highlight of the trip for me. And even though we were quite tired, we really enjoyed this first day in London. Hi guys, good morning. We literally slept for 10 hours straight. It was perfect healing night. And now we're like ready to get on with our day, but it's still very early, so I'm just watching YouTube right now in bed. But I'm happy to report that I only have 50 pages left of 人間失格, and I'm hoping to finish it by today if I can manage to read enough at the cafe. Yes, because we're gonna go to the cafe this morning to just spend some time, drink a coffee, and for me read my book, actually for my husband too. So even in London we don't change the good habits, right? Our second day in London was even better than the first one. We got to see so many things, but first we made a stop at the Starbucks near Big Ben, where I could read some more pages of 人間失格. Actually, I didn't expect this, but it turns out I enjoyed the Tate Modern even more than our time at the British Museum. The artworks we got to see there were very inspiring, and I was super happy to see some very famous pieces. And then the rest of the day was spent admiring the architecture of London, which I am in awe with. We of course spent some time on a double-decker bus, to my delight, and then we just hit the last few tourist spots that we didn't get to see so far. But by that time we were already feeling very, very tired. We had walked almost 10 kilometers, so we just headed back to our hotel in East Putney for the evening. Hi guys. So it's day 2 in London, and I'm actually having some reverse culture shocks already. People not smiling, how people are dressed, the fact that they don't tell you how much money you give them at cash registers, whereas in Japan actually they always tell you, you know, I forgot that in Europe actually they don't say that. Yeah, I've just been having some reverse culture shocks. Also, people like come to you and ask you questions. Like, it's so rare in Japan that people just come up to you and ask you stuff. Whereas here, people come to me to ask where I'm from, and maybe it's the way we look, perhaps. A lot of people are staring as well, because we're a mixed couple, obviously. Which, I mean, it should be the reverse, right? It should be more in Japan, but actually it isn't. So that's also a reverse culture shock, I guess. That's interesting. Like, in general, people are so different. It's so funny. I had forgotten. For context, it's been 2 years since I've been in Europe. It's my first proper time in London as an adult, because I had been when I was way younger, when I was still a child, with school, on a school trip. So this time I'm properly like enjoying London. properly saying it. Anyway, yeah, it's been 2 years since I've been in Europe, but last time I came back, for some reason, I didn't have any culture shocks, even though I had been living in Singapore for 4 years at that time. But for some reason, living 2 years in Japan really disconnected me from the life in Europe. Way more than 4 years in Singapore did. I have no idea why. Also something else that obviously I'm experiencing, it's when you bump into people on the street, or, when someone comes up to you and you're in someone's way, you say sorry, right, in English, but in Japanese you say sumimasen, and the sumimasen always comes out. The sorry doesn't. It's an adjustment, I think, even for me. It's the same for many people who've been living in Japan, because you say sumimasen so many times in a day, within one day. You just say it like all the time. So it becomes automatic and it's hard to lose, I guess. So replacing sumimasen by sorry has been difficult. And also the bowing, it comes automatically with the thank you. So I do it as well. My husband does it, of course. Whenever he says thank you, he also bows. But, it's not a big bow, but it's just like, you do like this with your head. It's a head bow, I guess. Even me, I can't get rid of it. It comes with the thank you. It's so funny. So that's for the update. But anyway, so far we've been enjoying our time in England a lot, but we're actually going to our next destination tomorrow, so I'll see you then. After experiencing the morning rush hour on the district line in London, we got to the airport and took our next plane, which will bring us to our next destination, which was Amsterdam. It was our first time in Amsterdam, and as soon as we arrived, we realized that the weather was way colder than the weather in London, so we knew we would have to be careful not to fall sick this time. And on this first day in Amsterdam, we just got to see a little bit of the main part of the city. And then this was already the next day. We enjoyed the little street markets in Amsterdam. We enjoyed the architecture there again, which was so different from the architecture we saw in London. I found the cafes there absolutely amazing. Everyone was so nice with us. Such a nice and calm atmosphere in this city that was also quite inspiring, in fact. And I even got to see a friend in Amsterdam, which was, again, one of the highlights of this trip for me. Hi guys, good morning. We're in Amsterdam right now, as you saw. But we're actually leaving today. We're gonna go to the museum, the National Museum first, and then the Van Gogh Museum. My husband is super happy to go to the Van Gogh Museum. He's a big fan. So I've taken audio guides, one in French, one in Japanese. We're gonna enjoy the museums this morning. And then I think we're gonna explore the city a little bit more today. And then we'll have our plane to our next destination this evening, actually. So that's gonna be another full day today. And I'm actually still not done with my book. Still not done reading my book. Look at this view. Wow. I'm still not done reading my book, guys. It's a struggle to read my book in the evenings if I can't stop during the day at a cafe to read. Reading in the evenings is too difficult because we're too tired. I'm used to it. Every time we travel, it's the same. So I know that in the evenings I can't really read anything. But in any case, it means that I'm still not done with my book. I think I only have like 20 pages left now. So not a lot. I can't wait to actually read this book because I'm wondering what happens at the end, towards the end. Already crazy things are happening so far in the book, so I'm wondering what happens next, and that will definitely determine my rating, I think, because so far I'm just like not very sure how much I will rate this. It's super special, it's super weird at the same time, so it's hard for me to rate it. So yeah, I can't wait to finish it and then go and look at some explanations, text explanations, like literary interpretations and stuff, to better understand everything, because some of the stuff that I've read, it was quite curious, let's say. So I'm not quite sure I understood absolutely everything, you know what I mean? So I will need to go look at some explanations, which I think will probably happen within today if I'm lucky. So yeah, I can't wait to do that, and then I'll tell you guys how much I rate this book. So I'll see you later then. That last day in Amsterdam was super exciting for us because we knew that we would get to see two amazing museums which we had been waiting for years to go and see by ourselves with our own eyes. The Van Gogh Museum and the National Museum of Amsterdam. And to be honest with you guys, I completely lost it there. It was so amazing that I got sucked into every piece of artwork, took pictures of so many that I found absolutely wonderful. They were so inspiring. Some of the paintings there were the most beautiful paintings I've ever seen in my entire life. Anyway, the Van Gogh Museum was not only inspiring, it was actually super moving. Once again, and then we just went straight to the airport. I got to read another comic book. And then another. And then because our plane was actually 1 hour late to take off, I read a third book. And the next day we were at our new destination, Tangier in Morocco. Hi guys, good morning. I'm in Tangier right now in Morocco. We're here for a wedding actually, otherwise we would never have come here probably. I'm very happy to be here nonetheless. A new continent for us. Everything is quite interesting, quite new for us. So yeah, we couldn't see anything yesterday, but as you can see today, the weather is kind of bright. At least it's not raining, not yet. So we can see the city a little bit and hear the birds, the seabirds. That's quite a nice atmosphere, and the breakfast was amazing. Again, we're not used to what we got served, but that was interesting. Anyway, let me wrap up what I actually read yesterday evening while we were waiting for the plane, and then on the plane, because I actually read 3 comic books in a row yesterday. We had so much waiting time, so I figured I might as well use it, you know what I mean? Alright, so the first book on the list that I read is the 8th book in the うちの猫がまた変なことしてる book series. So this was the 8th book in the series. So I know the series quite well. This was a very easy read. Actually, this book just came out in September, so I was super happy to get my hands on it. I purchased it on Amazon Kindle, so it would just, you know, be on my iPad for the trip. And so I got the chance to read it, and it was just as funny as all the other books in the series. I loved it, and I gave it a 4-star rating. And obviously the story is all about cats, and since I also have a cat at home, obviously I am touched by the topic. Alright, the next book I read, I also downloaded on my iPad before going on our trip, and it is妻の家出. And it is also a comic essay, but it was quite well rated. I didn't know anything about it, but it was quite well rated on the Kindle store, so I figured that I might as well read it for myself. I was curious about the story, even though I figured that this was about divorce probably, so not very fun topic. But actually, I also gave this a 4-star rating, and it touched me way more than I thought it would, because the story is about more than just a wife leaving her husband, and it was just very deeply moving. I'm not going to say anything about the story because otherwise I will spoil it for you guys if you want to read it for yourself, but it's a recommendation from me. If you want to give it a try, I would highly recommend recommend just be prepared to cry your eyes out towards the end, because the end is really unexpected. At least I didn't expect it at all. So when I reached the end, I cried instantly on the plane. So that was fun. I always love a good cry in public. Anyway, it gives a very good perspective on Japanese couples, and especially middle-aged couples. So I recommend. And finally, the last book I read yesterday was a new comic essay by an author I really like. And this was Mama Tomo ga Kowai. I had read Kiyota Mama Tomo, another comic essay which was more on the suspenseful side. This one was not suspenseful. The whole topic was about relationships between moms, Japanese moms, and especially moms of young kids in Japan, and how they can be quite harsh with each other, jealous of each other's lives and each other's, just life circumstances. This was interesting for me, to read about as an outsider, kind of Japan society. I don't have this kind of relationships in my life, so I'm clearly an outsider. It was almost like, looking through a peephole at this kind of relationships, because this sounds quite real, the struggles that the main characters have and how they think of themselves and about each other seems quite real to me. I don't think this is exaggerated at all. So you get a clear look at how Japanese women are harsh to each other. But then again, I think it's the same in any culture, anywhere around the world. So probably not specific to Japan. In terms of language, this was just like the first book, very easy to read, and also it's very natural in the speech, so you really get a sense of also how Japanese people have internal monologues and how they think of other people. So that's interesting in terms of language as well. So I wanted to mention that. So this is a 5-star for me, 5-star rating. Every time with this author, I'm deeply moved. She doesn't hold back. She just says it as it is. Her stories feel so real that you're wondering whether she's actually talking about herself. But I don't think she is. I think she's just like, imagining those characters, but they just sound super real, which I really like. And I think authors who can do that are geniuses. So that's why I also gave this one a 5-star. I had given the first one I had read from her a 5-star as well, so 5-star again, here you go. And I am still not done with 人間失格, but I think probably I just need to, get some time to myself at a cafe, and I just want to be able to read the last part in a calm setting. So as soon as I find the calm setting, I'll do that. I'll finish the book. I always have it on me in my bag, so if I can sit down somewhere and read for a bit today, then I'll finish it today. Otherwise, we'll see when I finish it. But yeah, so that's it for this little update from Tangier, Morocco. Morocco was nothing like I had imagined. In fact, it was much different, and everything felt new. In terms of language, guys, I mostly spoke French, if you're wondering, because basically everyone there speaks French, kind of. So I was able to just get by just using French, so that was comforting. But other than the language, nothing was familiar to me, and even less for my husband, of course, so we were discovering absolutely everything. What I can tell you is that the atmosphere was wonderful, the food was amazing, everything looked so great. We got to see amazing views from the top of our hotel, and we got to explore the entirety of the old city by foot. And I will let you guys enjoy the sights, because we got to see absolutely beautiful things in this city. And then in the evening on that day, it was time for us to attend a wedding, in fact, which was the reason why we came to Tangier in the first place. It was the wedding of one of my good friends, and it was a wonderful, one-of-a-kind experience which we will never forget. And then the next day was already time for us to go back to Europe. And when we were at the airport, I got to finish 人間失格 finally while we were waiting in line. And I even got to start my next book. The next day, we woke up in yet again a different city, which this time was Barcelona in Spain. Again, our first time for the both of us, and as soon as we got there, we knew that this would be the best destination we went to this time on this trip. The atmosphere was great, the weather was amazing, the sights were wonderful, and once again, we loved the architecture of the city. We got to see all of the famous spots in the city, which I felt very lucky to be able to do. Wonderful cathedrals in the city. The old town was amazing as well. We loved the atmosphere. We loved the atmosphere of the port and the beach even more. Coming on to the most amazing part of Spain, in my opinion, which was the food. I ate so much, guys, during our time in Spain. This was absolutely outrageous. I ate my weight in ham because it is so rare to find good ham in Japan, so I just indulged. And the same goes for sangria, which I drank heartfully, and with cheese, which was absolutely delicious. By that time in the trip, we were really getting tired, so we spent some time at the cafe to just rest before we had to go to our next and final destination. I got to read my book there, and I actually wrote a little bit in that cafe as well. Wow, I loved living in Ireland. I miss it, but I sure didn't miss the lack of light, of natural light in the UK and Ireland. Oh my god, I hope you guys can see me well. Anyway, good morning. I actually didn't speak to you guys in Spain, and that's a good sign because we did have the best time ever in Spain. The food was amazing. The scenery was amazing as well. Incredible. The people were so nice. We loved absolutely everything, and it meant that I didn't have 1 second of my time to dedicate speaking to you guys, so sorry about that. I apologize. So we're now in London at Heathrow Airport, a hotel just nearby, because we're just waiting for our flight back to Asia, and it's time for me to do a little update on 人間失格 because I finished reading it quite a while ago. Actually, I finished reading it I think it was like 2 or 3 days ago already. In any case, it was back in September. We're now in October because we're the 2nd of October. So I finished reading this book, and it took me a while to figure out how much I was going to rate it, because it was kind of hard actually to make up my mind around it and to understand whether or not I actually liked it. So let's talk about that for a second. Right, so 人間失格 by Dazai Osamu. Definitely I could tell that this was a literature masterpiece. There is no doubt about it. It's wonderfully written. It's one of the hardest things I've read in Japanese, in fact. The language was quite hard. The kanji used as well were quite hard because a lot of them were older kanji used. So definitely it took me a while to adjust because some of the words were just written in the old way, not exactly modern Japanese, like not the most modern Japanese, but then once I had adjusted, I was able to obviously focus on how Dazai Osamu was writing. So his writing was able to focus on that. I was able to really connect with the main character and what he was going through. So this is definitely not a joyful story. Is not a joyful experience to read the story either. I was thankful to be able to read it from almost a writer's point of view because I do write my own stuff as well. I do write some fiction. None of it is published, but I do write. And from this experience that I have, my own experience, I can basically ask myself, whenever I read something like this, could I have written something similar? And in this case, the answer is probably not, especially because he goes places where I would never go. It's just too dark for me. I'm not saying that I only like reading and writing light things, but definitely this is like the dark stuff, if you know what I mean, like the darkest stuff. And I wouldn't go there myself, so I wouldn't have been able to write something like this. But this is definitely a masterpiece that he really wrote this at a time when he was at like the pinnacle of his art. In fact, unfortunately, he ended his life right after writing this book. So a lot of people have interpreted this book as having a lot more meaning than the first layer of meaning that it has. So I'm not gonna make you wait any longer. I have rated this a 4-star. Usually I rate classic literature 5-star ratings, just because it is classic literature and most of the time I really enjoy it. Some of the time it's even 6-star ratings for me, so meaning that it's absolutely life-changing, like Frankenstein was for me, for example, when I read it. But this one was not part of this category, unfortunately. Really only because of the plot, I want to say, and also because I feel like it could have gone even further. This is quite a short book, actually. It's only like 150 pages, and reading it also felt a bit short. I could have used more, actually. More stuff, more events. I could have used more time with the main character as well. Overall, I just feel like this book was meant to make the reader almost feel bad, like feel something, really physically feel something. I didn't enjoy it that much, to be honest with you. It was very unbalanced in that way because it was only going for the dark stuff. There was absolutely almost no light element in the story, and that's why it lost a star for me in the rating. I will definitely read more from this author because I feel like this particular book it's quite special in the author's work in general. So I will read books that he has written before writing this one. Just to tell you 2 more things very quickly. The first thing is about the plot. So very quickly, without giving you any spoilers, we follow the main character in this story, who basically is someone who collects from a bar owner in Tokyo, who collects notebooks, diaries written by someone he doesn't know, a man he doesn't know. And in the diaries there are some pictures as well of the man himself, when he was a child, when he was a bit older, and then when he was way older. Basically the diaries are in chronological order from this man's childhood to his, I think, late 30s, early 40s. And so the main character just reads the diaries, and that's the entirety of the book. And so like 97% of the book is just reading the diaries. So that's it for the story. And so we follow this man's, the man who wrote the diaries, his life and what happened in his life, and collection of his thoughts, really. And the second thing I wanted to tell you is that if you want a comparison, with other literature pieces, I felt very strongly that this, the feeling that it left me reading this book resembled the feeling I got when I read The Stranger by Albert Camus, L'étranger in French. So the feeling I got reading The Stranger resembled the feeling I got when reading this book, 人間失格. And also it resembled another work by Camus, which is La Peste, just by the fact that, you know, some of the events that are described are very gross. And that's what you get also in La Peste by Camus. So, you know, it really, I could picture everything in my head when reading the book, and that's kind of the feeling I got, the same kind of feeling. So yeah, I wanted to mention that as well, if you're wondering. Right after I finished reading 人間失格, I started my next book, which is 密やかな結晶, The Memory Police, translated to The Memory Police in English, and this is a dystopian fiction, and so far I love it. I have already read, actually I'm well into it already. I've already read 80 pages out of, I think, 430. I really like this one so far. It's way easier to read than 人間失格, so I'm reading it super fast in comparison. This is, of course, clearly modern Japanese, so that's why I can read it super fast. So that was a nice combination that I got there, and I'm happy that I started with 人間失格, and that I am now reading 密やかな結晶. And you know what? I will tell you more about what the story is about and my thoughts about the book when I actually finish it, or if I don't finish it before the end of this trip, then I will tell you about it in a future vlog. So don't worry, you will know what my opinion is about this book at some point in the future. Alright, so I guess that's it for now. And now we're gonna just spend the day waiting for our plane to Singapore. And then once we reach Singapore, we're gonna take our plane to go back to Japan, to Fukuoka. So I'm not sure whether I will see you again before we land in Japan. But in any case, we will see. See you later, guys. Before we went back to the airport and took our plane that day, we actually went back to London to one specific area which I really wanted to see, the Notting Hill part of the city. My husband and I are fans of the movie, and I honestly just wanted to be there and experience the atmosphere for myself. I took this last opportunity to just take us there and enjoy just a couple of hours in this area of the city. And then it was time for us to go on our long trip back home. While we were at Heathrow Airport, I actually managed to read another comic essay because our plane was actually quite late in the evening. And I also started reading the next comic essay in this same series of 2 books. This next shot is already when we were in Singapore after our 13-hour flight overnight, and I could spend some time there reading my book 密やかな結晶 once again, because we had originally an 8-hour layover which turned out to be a 9-hour layover. I also managed to finish the second book in the 離婚してもいいですか book series, which brings the grand total of books read during this trip to 6. And finally, we were back in Fukuoka. I got my Kinako back with me. I was the happiest. Alright guys, and I am back home in Fukuoka, Japan. Finally, we made it home. It was a very long journey, as you saw. But I'm happy that I could read so much, actually, on my trip. I didn't know exactly how much I would be able to read, so eventually being able to read this many books was a great experience. As for me, I will actually take a few days break to just recover from this long trip, edit the vlog that you're watching right now, and in any case, I will see you in my next video on the channel, guys. Bye bye! Mata ne! Thank you for watching!
We'll bring it in a simple